electrolyte is a substance that when dissolved in water allows the water to conduct a current. And you may see this little kind of experiment sometimes, and the idea is that the power source, the electricity, is actually run through here, and unless something that conducts electricity is between these electrodes, then the light won't light up. So in this case, whatever is in this water must conduct electricity and allow this to light up. And by the way, water itself is not a very good conductor of electricity. It's when there's ions dissolved in it that it does. So ions are the key to conducting a current. And so when we say strong, that means you have something that ionizes completely. So the way you get the ions is you have an ionic compound that dissolves, it breaks apart to form ions, and if it 100% breaks apart to form all ions, we call that strong, as in a strong electrolyte. Water-soluble compounds, ionic compounds, are strong electrolytes. As we know, when they dissolve in water, they have to break apart into their ions. Okay, and since we said the word strong means they totally break apart, again we can use that word strong. A strong electrolyte means it's totally ionized. Once again, all ionic compounds that dissolve in water must be strong electrolytes because they have to break apart in order to dissolve. And do remember, ions are the key to conducting electricity. Well, not all ionic compounds dissolve in water, so not all ionic compounds are electrolytes. If they don't dissolve, they're not forming ions. And so how do we know which ones? Well, for one thing, you need to know these 6 ions, and I call these the water-soluble ions. Basically, any compound made with one of these, in other words, lithium fluoride, lithium chloride, lithium sulfide, doesn't matter what you put with it, that compound is water-soluble. So those are easy. We know those for sure. So memorize those. And for example, in this situation, you should be able to say which one will ionize and which one doesn't. And if there's one of each, I tell you that one of them does and one doesn't, you can look for one of those 6, and this one has nitrate. So I know that this one ionizes in water, and I actually don't have a rule for this one. If I knew that there was a solid formed, this would be the solid formed. Again, for ionic compounds, if they dissolve, they have to break apart into ions. If they don't break apart into ions, they are not water-soluble, they're water-insoluble. And because they don't form ions, they are non-electrolytes. They will not conduct a current. In fact, for some compounds that are insoluble, if you put the ions in water some other way from other compounds, those ions will find each other and form a solid. So here is the chemical equation of that happening. The silver ions are finding the chloride ions to form a solid. And so remember that S means solid. It means that it must be insoluble. And the word for this, when they come together and they form a solid, is precipitate. And we abbreviate that PPT. So this is our precipitate. So is silver chloride an electrolyte? No. It does not ionize. In fact, if there are ions, they come together. Why does it do this? Why do some of them ionize? It has to do with how strong the attractions are between the ions and the ion size and so forth. It also has to do with the attractions to the water molecules that these are attached to. acids. Acid formulas start with H. You have some acids that are strong and some that are weak. The strong acids ionize completely. Remember that strong always means totally ionizes. And so even though an acid doesn't look ionic, it has nonmetals. Acids act ionic when you put them in water. They do ionize. So strong acids are strong electrolytes. And there are 7 strong acids. You need to know these because when you see them, you need to know if they're going to be ionized, if they're in water or not. Again, with acids, if they're strong, in water, they're all in the ion form. Strong bases work the same way. A base are hydroxides. In other words, they have the polyatomic ion hydroxide. And the strong ones, they totally break apart in water, and so we call them strong electrolytes. These are the strong bases. These are all hydroxides. And some of them are group 1 and some of them are group 2. Not all of the group 2 are considered strong. Again, know these. The reason that you need to know these strong acids and bases and ions is because when you put chemicals dissolved in water and you mix them, it's the ions that react. And so we're going to have to keep track of what's in the ion form and what's not if we're going to see what's happening in the reactions.